Hey guys, so this video is a little bit different. Obviously I'm not holding a chicken like I usually am, and I'm not in my chicken yard. I actually just dropped my chicken Josephina off at the vet. She is having surgery today and it's very serious. I've never done this with the chicken. It's a long story, so I'm gonna tell you today. Good girl. You're a good girl. You doing okay? Hello friends, welcome to Chickenlandia. My name is Dahlia. I'm a backyard chicken educator, also known as the president of Chickenlandia. Raising chickens has been the best way for me to find peace and joy in my life, and I want to help you find that too. Guys, I have my Christmas chickens behind me because in Chickenlandia, it's Christmas all year. You're a good girl. So this is Josephina. Say hi, Josephina. She is a total sweetheart. Josephina had surgery yesterday and she is doing really well today, as I'm sure you can already see. I think I've probably posted some video of how she's doing already. She's been eating and drinking and taking her medicine, and honestly, it's like nothing really happened, but definitely something happened. She has one leg now. She had her right leg removed yesterday. Almost all of the leg got removed. She had to have a couple of toes on her left leg removed as well, but she can still balance on that leg. So overall, I think she's just been doing great. I mean, obviously she's on pain medication right now, and I do have some homeopathic medication that I'm gonna give her, but it's pretty much the same as it was before she had the surgery in terms of like how she's feeling. At least that's how it seems to me. So let me tell you the story of what happened. It was about maybe 2 months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I noticed that Josephina wasn't feeling well. And I do have mycoplasma in my flock. It's a rare form of mycoplasma, and it's pretty tough to treat, but once I notice that they have it, most of the time I will put them on antibiotics right away. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just use homeopathics, but I put her on some antibiotics and I brought her inside. I did the rest method with her, which is just something I do for sick chickens, and I will leave a link for that in the description if you're curious about it. And she recovered very quickly. She did her course of antibiotics and went right back into the flock after that and was doing great. And I was like, okay, this is all good. I think it was about a week later. It was the morning, and I walked into the coop and Josephina was on the floor. When I picked her up, I noticed that her toes were really curled in on her right leg. And I thought, well, that's strange. And I have seen, because of this mycoplasma, sometimes it can affect their legs. So I just assumed that's what it was. And I brought her inside and I observed her, but then I realized she had a fever too. And I was like, okay, this is not right. And by that night, I started to notice that her toes were turning black. And that's never a good thing when you see that. So unfortunately, her vet that I normally take her to, they closed for a week, but they were kind enough to get me a prescription for her before they were closed. And so I was able to get her on antibiotics fairly quickly. At that point, she was not eating and drinking on her own. I was hand feeding her, and she did eat when I used a needleless syringe, and I fed her that way, and she would eat. If it went into her beak, she would be like, so not all was lost, because if they're like really bad off, sometimes they'll just be like, ugh, and everything falls out, and you just know that at that point, it's probably not gonna be good. But she would eat if she was hand fed, and slowly she started to feel better, but I just was not seeing color come back into that foot, and in fact, it spread a little bit, and pretty much the whole foot turned black. And then on her other leg, I noticed she had the tips of 2 toes that turned black. So, I mean, I knew at that point that her foot had died and that the tips of her toes on the other foot the 2 of those had died. So definitely not great. But after a week of hand feeding her, she was eating and drinking on her own. She was obviously feeling a lot better. She was really perky. I would come outside and I'd put her in the sun and sit with her, and she would eat and drink and take a little one-legged dust bath because her other foot just wasn't working. And I could tell she wanted to like move around, but she just couldn't because she had this leg that just wasn't working at all. And so I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? So she was doing really well, and by that time the vet had opened back up and I was able to get her in. And I brought her in, and the vet examined her and he saw that her foot was just like dead. And he called me and he was like, I really think you should probably put her down. And he had left this message, okay? And so I was surprised by that because he will do anything. I know a lot of vets, especially when it comes to chickens, like they really have not a very high threshold before they'll say, put that bird down. And for him, he's not like that. Like, I have sent chickens to him that were like on death's door, and he's like, I can help them. So I was surprised, and I called him back and I was like, I totally hear you and I understand why you're saying this, but she's like, she wants to live. I think when he heard where I was coming from with it and what I was willing to do, then he started to feel like, okay, well, let me talk to you about the options, because I think he just assumed that probably I wouldn't want to spend this amount of money on a chicken. But we just kept talking about it, and he told me, he's like, look, I've done this surgery on parrots. Honestly, like, chickens are more resilient than parrots, so I think she would do well, and I think we can do this. He told me, he's like, it's not cheap, but we can do it. If you want to do it and if you want to try, then I'm willing to do that. And I told him about my husband who has a 3D printer. And I said, I think that we can make her a leg. So let's just go for it. So it was the day before yesterday that she had the surgery. She had it in the afternoon, and I can't really see a lot. Like, I don't want to handle it too much because it might hurt. And she got it a little bit dirty. But this is her stump right here. And you can see it's like pretty high up, but we already have found a pattern, I guess that's what you call it, I don't know, a mold or whatever, online, because of course they have them online, prosthetic chicken legs. And so we found one. I sent it to my husband. He's like, yeah, I can do that. But we're kind of waiting for her to heal a little bit just to get a better idea, because I need to take the bandage off and get a better idea of like the circumference of the stump so that we can fit it really well. This is what we're leaning towards, and it'll be basically like when a human wears a prosthetic, they put like a little sock on and then they put the prosthetic on. So we'll have to figure something out, like how to keep it from hurting her, from her getting chafed from it, and also how to, we want her to be able to keep it on. So we have a little bit of work to do, and she's just not ready for that yet. But I'm so happy with how she's doing. I mean, like, even if you just look at her right now, I can feel like her energy, and she just feels chickeny. Like, she's curious. She wants to eat. She wants to drink. She likes to sit in the sun. I am keeping her clean right now. I don't want to put her down like on the bare grass because I don't want her bandages to get dirty. She has to keep these on for 2 weeks. I might change them before then. They told me at the vet, you can just keep these on and keep it as clean as you can, and then in 2 weeks we will take it off. But I don't know. She's already pooped on them once, and I cleaned it as best as I could. So we're probably gonna see the vet before then, right? She's like literally right now she wants to like get up. You want to stand? And she can't stand on one leg. See? With a little bit of help. I think she's gonna do okay with the prosthetic. Now, obviously, she can't go back with the flock. There are probably small chickens that she can live with. There's already changes I want to make in Chickenlandia, so I'm working on where she will live and have a good quality of life, but not be with the big flock and be with roosters where she could get hurt. So we're working on that. And I do want to say, I've never spent this much money on a chicken before. And I know that a lot of people can't. And I would hate for anyone to feel guilty for having to make a different decision. And I know a lot of people would just be like, well, it's not even that I can't, but I just won't do that for a chicken. And I understand that too. For me, it's like the more chickens that are not in factory farms, the happier I am. That's better for chickens and that's better for humans. And that's what I want to see. And that means that I have to just be accepting and okay with all the different ways and the different levels of care that people give to their chickens. As long as they're being cared for in a humane way and they can feel the sky and they can peck and scratch, I think that is wonderful. Even though I don't know if you're going to be pecking and scratching, but she can still feel the sky. As long as they have a good life outside like a chicken is supposed to have and not behind the walls of a factory farm, I'm okay with that. It just so happens that I was willing to do this, and thank goodness I can afford to do this. I will tell you, I was shocked when I got the bill. And I'm not going to lie, I felt really foolish in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, because I didn't even really talk to the vet about it, about what the price was. I knew, I had been warned it wasn't going to be cheap, but I didn't go into specifics because I just felt like, look, this is what I want to do, and I'm not basing it on whatever this costs. Well, when I got the bill, I'm not even going to say how much it was because, I just don't even want to say it out loud, okay? I was like, did I make a mistake, And I hate to admit that, especially in front of you, Josephina. But there's a little bit of a story that comes with that because I feel much better about it, and here's why. So when I came out of the veterinary office, I was reeling from having spent all that money and wondering, gosh, was this a mistake? And there was a man standing there. He was carrying like all this dog food. And he was smiling at me, and he was like, oh, what do you have? Because I had Josephina in a carrier. He was like, oh, what's in there? Is that a cat? It looks beautiful. And I said, it's a chicken. And he goes, oh, I used to have chickens. I used to have, can't remember how many he said he had, like 8 or something. And then at one point it was down to 2, and I used to take one of them through the drive-through, and I would give her French fries. And then eventually she died. And after she died, I told my wife, I can't do that again. I can't, because I just get too attached. And I was like, yeah, I understand. And then I said, well, I just spent more money than I have ever spent on a chicken. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I bet you probably feel, kind of feel bad about that right now. And he looked at me and he said, but I want to tell you something. She knows. She knows how much you care. And so it wasn't for nothing. And it was such a gift, It's so weird how sometimes you can meet somebody and it's almost like they're not real. It's like they were put there to just say something that you needed to hear in that moment. And thank God for that sweet man. If you're out there and you're somehow watching this, I really appreciate what you did, because you changed this whole experience for me and you made me feel better about it. Josephina and I were having our own experience, and I don't need to compare it with anyone else, and I don't need to feel guilty about it. It is what it is. Whatever our karmic experience is, I think we're on an upswing. Isn't that right, Josephina? So I want to tell you Josephina is not her original name, okay? I got him from my friend who's the one that brings me all the raggedy chickens that have been rejected. He's the one that brought me Ivar. He's great. He knows I'm gonna love on these chickens and take care of them, so he feels good bringing them to me, but he originally had named her Dahlia. He was like, her name is Dahlia. And I said, I am going to change her name because I don't want it to be like, oh, Dahlia pooped on the ground again. You know, our Dahlia lost a foot and had to have it removed. It was $2,000. Oops, I said the price. There goes. Yeah, right? Even she's surprised. But anyway, I'm so glad that I have Josephina. I think this name suits her better. And I will tell you guys, because I know you're going to ask, you know, sometimes people are like, hey, do you have a PayPal or do you have a GoFundMe or whatever? How can I support you? And I'm just like, even though I love donating to all that stuff, like whenever I see it, if I can, I'll donate to it. But I don't really feel comfortable putting out like a GoFundMe or anything. I have products, you know, I mean, I have my course, I have my book. If you are so inclined, you can buy my course or you can buy my book. I also have sponsors, and all of those links are in the description. So if you feel like you want to support me and you want to put some money towards Josephina's surgery, then you can go and check out those links and buy something, and that way you get something in return too. So probably about a week or 2 weeks. I'm gonna give her some time to heal, and then during that time we're gonna be figuring out the prosthetic leg, and I'm gonna keep you guys updated so you can see her progress. And if you can send her some good energy prayers or whatever you do to connect like that, send them over for both of us. Did you just adjust? She was just adjusting her crop. Yeah. So yeah, that's the story. You know, let me know in the comments. Do you know of anybody that makes chicken prosthetic legs? Let me know if you have any information about that. If you've ever made a chicken wheelchair, let me know. Or if you just want to show Josephina some support, leave her a comment and I'll read it to her. And I'm sure she will appreciate that very much. Right, honey? Yes. In the meantime, the main thing I want you all to know is that you are welcome in Chickenlandia.